Hi everyone, and welcome to my next video tutorial, which is going to be focused on creating an application with AWS Elastic Beanstalk. So let's go on ahead and get started. Now, before we dive into the setup for Elastic Beanstalk, there are a few things that we need to configure beforehand. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Now, the first thing that you want to do is you want to head on over to IAM. So we can go ahead and click on IAM. Okay, and we just want to go on ahead and create a role, which essentially is going to be serving as our instance profile. So you need to have this in place so that you'll be able to utilize and create an environment in Elastic Beanstalk. So on your IAM dashboard, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and click on roles here on the left hand side. So if this info panel isn't open, you can just go ahead and click on that and go to roles. After which you want to just create another role here. So we can say create role. Okay, it's going to be based on an AWS service. Then the use case here is going to be on EC2. So we're going to essentially create an EC2 instance in the backend of Elastic Beanstalk. Okay, then you want to select EC2. Then you can scroll down and say next. Okay, now we just want to add in a permission policy. So I'm just going to look for EC2 full access. Now, in terms of the role that you assign to this instance profile, okay, you just need to have one that you want to utilize. Okay, so I'm just going to, for example, look for EC2 and let's just branch this out. And let's see EC2 full access. And I feel this is quite an appropriate role that we can assign. So you want to select that, scroll down and say next. Then you want to give your role a name here, and I'm just going to call it EC2 full access role. Okay, so we can just scroll down now after you've named it and say create role. So this is going to serve as our instance profile. Now this can be anything. This can be, for example, S3 full access or anything that you desire. You just need to have like a custom role of sorts in place to utilize Elastic Beanstalk. Okay, so it's a little bit detrimental, but that's just how you need to go about it. Next, we want to go to EC2. So you can search for EC2, head on straight there. Okay, just give it a moment. And now what you want to do is you want to go on ahead and you want to, first of all, create a key pair so that you will be able to access your EC2 instance. So we can go to key pairs. Then you want to go to say create key pair. Then you want to give your key pair a name here. I'm going to call it my KP. You can leave the key pair type as the default for RSA, and under the format, you can decide if you want a .ppk file or a .pem file, and each of these are open in different ways. So the .pem file you can use with OpenSSH, and the .ppk file is going to be used with PuTTY. So this is generally going to be used for Windows users. So you can say create key pair, and there you have it. So that's important so that you can connect to your EC2 instance, which is going to be generated once we have set up our environment in Elastic Beanstalk. Perfect. Now let's head on back to the dashboard. And the next thing that we need to do is just refresh here, and we can see we have a key pair. Then we want to create a security group so that we'll be able to access our application at HTTP. So you can go to security groups, and we just want to create a new security group. So here on the top right, we can say create security group, and you want to scroll up and just give it a name. So I'm going to call this web access, and I'm also going to add that as a description. So essentially, I want to set up inbound rules to be able to connect to my application on HTTP. So I can say add rule, and I'm going to set the type here as HTTP. So I can search for that, and I'm going to set this to all IPv4 addresses via the following CIDR block. It's going to be from anywhere IPv4 based. Then I'm going to add another rule, which is going to be HTTP as well. And I want to be able to access my application on HTTP on port 80 from all IPv6 addresses denoted by the following CIDR block. So make sure you've got that into place. Once you've got that set, you can scroll down and create the security group. There we go. So these are the prerequisites that you need to set up before you can go ahead and create your application with Elastic Beanstalk. Right, so let's move on. So Elastic Beanstalk. So we can search for Elastic Beanstalk. So here it is. So we can run and manage our web apps. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to create our application. So we want to deploy a simple web application. So we can say create application. Okay, and it's going to take us through a long setup wizard here on the left hand side, as you can see the steps. So first of all, we need to decide on the environment tier. So as we can see, Elastic Beanstalk has two types of environment tiers to support different types of web applications. For general and most web applications, you want to create a web server environment so we can run a website, a web app, or web API that serves HTTP requests. A work environment is more suited to applications that require longer batch-based processing. So this is a bit out of scope. So we're just going to keep it straightforward and create a web server environment. Then you want to give a name to your applications. I'm going to call this web application 96 as an example. Once you've entered that in, you can scroll down and see that the environment is going to be created based on the application name, but just add -env because it's going to create essentially an environment. You're more than welcome to add in a domain here if you want to set up a domain name and check for availability. If not, what will happen is AWS Elastic Beanstalk will automatically use a default domain name for you. You can add some information here according to the environment if you so desire, just some text to describe it. If not, let's continue. So under the platform here, we're going to use a managed platform that will be published and maintained by Amazon Elastic Beanstalk. Now, in terms of the platform, you can decide how you want to set it up. I'm going to go with Node.js. Okay, it's going to set a default platform branch according to the Node.js version here and what it will be running on and the platform version. After which you can see here that we're going to use a sample application here, and that's how we're going to leave it on the default. Now under presets here, we can specify our configuration preset. So if we want a single instance or a single EC2 instance / virtual server, we can keep it on the default and the free tier will be eligible. So we can choose our own instance type. If you were to choose high availability, for example, you're going to have multiple instances in multiple availability zones. So let's keep it simple and choose one instance. So let's go next. And that's going to take us to step 2 in this setup wizard. So now we want to configure service access. So now it's going to tie in what I just showed you earlier in the video. So if you have an existing service role, you can select it here, but to keep it simple so everyone follows along easily, we can say create and use new service role. And that's going to create an AWS Elastic Beanstalk service role for us. Next, in order to access your EC2 instance, you can go ahead and select your key peer. We already created one previously. And then the instance profile, which we just created. Now, this is mandatory. You have to add it in or else your setup for Elastic Beanstalk will fail. So I'm just going to put in this EC2 full access role that I have. So from my experience, it doesn't really matter what role you put on here. You just need to have something in place. Right, let's go ahead and say next. Let's move on to step 3. So let's go ahead and do that. So under the VPC, we're not going to go into detail with this. We're just going to utilize our default VPC here. So from the drop down, you can select the one that's available to you. Under instance settings here, what we want to do is we want to have a public IP address available to us for our instance. So we can go ahead and say activated. We can check the box in activated and choose our subnets here. So from my experience, it's best practice to choose at least 3 availability zones. So here I have only 3, so I'm going to select all of them. So I want my application to be set up accordingly. Right. You have opportunity here to also set up your database if you so desire. However, we're just going to leave that out for now, but it's something that you can look into later on. Now, all these settings grayed out all pertain to the database, so we can just leave that as is. Let's continue to the next step. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to configure our instance traffic and scaling. So we can leave the instances section here in terms of the root volume on the default here. We don't want to go into heavy detail with this. As we can see, we have default CloudWatch monitoring in place, okay, every 5 minutes, and these metrics are going to be reported from the EC2 instances. Okay, now under EC2 instance security groups, okay, we want to utilize the security group that we just created, which was web access. So they'll be able to access our application on HTTP on port 80. Okay, now what's going to happen, Elastic Beanstalk is also going to create a security group in the process, okay, and this is just going to be used in conjunction with the security group that we created here. Right, under capacity here, we can see that we can manage the auto scaling as we so desire, but we're going to keep it simple and keep it at a single instance, an on-demand instance under fleet composition, leave everything else on the default as is, and here under instance types we want to choose something that's going to be very cheap and that's eligible for the free tier usually. So we can just close these two tags for these options, and we want to look for T2 micro. Now be careful that you don't select the wrong instance here, or else you can pay a lot of money, so be very careful and follow me explicitly. So we want to look for T2 micro, so this is what we want to look for. So make sure that you have selected that and only that, so a T2 micro instance type. Right, once you're happy with that, you can go ahead and scroll down and say next. Okay, let's give it a moment just to load. All right, so under health reporting here, you can utilize system based on basic or enhanced health reporting. So we want to keep it simple, so let's keep it to basic. And if you set it to basic here under health reporting, you're going to want to uncheck this manage updates option here as follows here. Great, so let's continue. You're more than welcome to add in an email here to get notifications based on various events from your environment. Under rolling updates and deployments, the policy here, we're going to set that all at once, and we're going to leave everything here on the default option as specified. Under platforms software, our container, the proxy server will be Nginx, and you also have the opportunity to add in X-Ray daemon from Amazon X-Ray and to set up route logs based on S3 log storage. Okay, so we can leave everything as is, and we can say next. Now we are, of course, going to head on over to the final stage, which is the review stage. So if there's anything of these steps here that you want to change or you want to reconsider, you can just say edit on the relevant sections here of the steps that you can see. If you're happy with everything, you can scroll all the way down and just say submit. And this is going to start up an Elastic Beanstalk environment for us, set up our application, and also set up the EC2 instance. Now we can see here it's going to take a few minutes and it's going to launch our environment. So this is the environment to be launched, and it's based on the application here, Web Application 96. And as we can see, if we scroll down, some information such as the platform, if the platform state is being supported, and the events as this environment is launched. So as we can see here, the environment has started running. We can see that we are using Elastic Beanstalk ES2, and we're going to see it's creating security groups, so it will create its own custom security group in conjunction with the ones that we have set up. And we can see it's going to set up Amazon S3 storage bucket for all the environment data. And what you can do is you can just wait here and see everything being populated under the events as the environment is being launched. We will go into more detail with everything else here that is available, but for the time being, let's just be patient and wait for our environment to launch, and then we can continue with the process. So let's just be patient here while everything gets created, as you can see in the event section here. Alright, so welcome back. So as you can see, our environment was successfully launched. Now, after you see this message, I recommend that you just wait a few minutes after, just to make sure everything is set up and ready to go. And as we can see, we have our domain associated. So by default, it's going to combine our web application name with the default that it was initially set in the process. So we can access our website right here. So what we can do is right click on it, so open link in new tab. And as we can see here, it's still loading, and there we have it. So here is our simple application that has been deployed and set up with AWS Elastic Beanstalk. So we have a simple Node.js application set up with this environment. Okay, so a bit more information here. If you were to scroll down, you can see all the events that transpired here. And of course, the most recent one was successfully launched environment Web Application 96-env. And you can see everything that was set up, such as an EC2 instance which was created, which I'm going to show you in a moment. The deployment was completed successfully. The environment health has been set to green, and where that application is available at the following domain here, which we just went ahead and checked. We can also see information here in terms of the health of our application. We can see here some information here. Now, of course, we have disabled enhanced health here. We set it to basic, so we're not going to have that much information here. But if you were to set it to enhanced, you'll see more information. Of course, we can check in the logs as well here. So what you'll do is you would request the logs accordingly to what you desire here. Under monitoring, we can have the ability to read all of the service metrics. Now, as you can see here, we haven't gone ahead and configured everything in fairly detail. We just have the basic setup and into place. So it is sometimes going to take some time before we can see some information shown here in this section. Also have the ability to set up alarms as you so desire, which you can bind to your environment here. And of course, anything set to managed updates, and we can also set in tags here to tag various key value pairs. As you can see, there are a few here already set up, but you can also go on ahead and manage your tags accordingly. Now, as for that EC2 instance that was generated, so our actual application, you can just say EC2 here in the search bar, and let's open that in a new tab here. And I'll show you the EC2 instance that was created as per, if we go to the events. Okay, we can see here added an EC2 instance, okay, and that pertains to the application that we have. So if we go to EC2, we can see we have one EC2 instance that is running. So if we click on that, we can see here is that application here, that EC2 instance that we created, one of them, and the instance type was T2 micro as we so desired. And we can see it shows the availability zone to be US East 2C. So if we were to go ahead and connect to this EC2 instance, you can either use the key pair, which you downloaded, and connect to it by SSHing into your application, or what you can do is you can click on your EC2 instance that you have here, and you can go ahead and go to Actions, and what you want to do is you want to actually connect to it. So you can either click on Actions here and click on Connect, or you can click on Connect right here. So if I click on Connect here, as you can see here, we can go ahead and connect to it accordingly and say connect, and that's how you can connect to it via AWS. All right. So if we head on back to our instances right here, okay, there is one more thing that I want to mention that you should keep in mind here is with your security group on SSH. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you have access to access your application on port 22. So what you can do essentially is you can go to your security group here, so here on the left. Okay, and what you want to do is you just want to investigate the security groups that are here. So here you'll see you have a web application here at 96. So this is the custom security group created by Elastic Beanstalk. So you can click on this. Okay, and you can see here our inbound rules. So you just want to make sure that you have this inbound rule here for SSH so that you'll be able to actually connect to it via EC2 Instance Connect, which I just showed you here, or via your key pair. So just keep that in mind, very important to note. All right, so that is it for this video tutorial on creating an application with Elastic Beanstalk. Now, I just want to show you how you can go ahead and close everything off. So what you want to do so is if you head on back to Elastic Beanstalk here, you can go to Actions and you can say Terminate Environment, and then you want to put in the name of your environment here that you want to terminate. Okay, and terminate as such. So that's going to delete that environment, and what it's also going to do is it's going to terminate your EC2 instance as well. So just for good measure here, I'm just going to wait for this to be terminated, and then I'm going to show you the final steps to clean up our resources. Right, so welcome back. So as we can see, our environment was terminated. Next thing that you want to do is you can head on to EC2 here and just refresh. Okay, let's give it a moment. As we can see, that EC2 instance is also terminated, so make sure that's been deleted as well. Now, if we head on back to here to our environment, what you want to do is you want to click on environments here. Just make sure that if you move this along here, that says terminated, and it's binded to this application here called Web Application 96, which we need to delete as well. So you can go to Applications here on the left and select it, go to Actions, delete application, and you want to put that name in here and say delete. Okay. So we can close this and refresh. And there we go, that application is also deleted. Now this info panel here, if you can't get it open, just click on the icon here and then you'll see environments and applications. Alright, so that's it for this video tutorial on creating an application with Elastic Beanstalk. Thank you as always for the support, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.